The chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed like a monument carved out of crystal, its walls glowing faintly with the light of distant stars. Thousands of alien leaders filled the vast hall, their banners fluttering, their voices buzzing with tension. This was supposed to be the final meeting, the last chance for peace. For weeks, rumors had spread that the humans were building weapons in secret, defying the Senate's orders. Now the Council had summoned them here to demand submission once and for all. The air itself felt heavy as the Speaker of the Council rose, his body tall and silver, his voice carrying across the chamber like rolling thunder. He spoke of balance, of unity, of order, but his words were sharp with arrogance. Humanity must bend, he declared. Humanity must disarm. Humanity must submit to the will of the galaxy, or be cast out. Applause broke across the chamber as many alien leaders nodded in agreement, their eyes filled with disdain as they turned toward the humans. At the far end of the hall, the human delegation sat in their seats, dressed in plain black uniforms that stood in contrast to the glittering robes, jewels, and ceremonial armor of the others. They had no ornament, no display, only the quiet presence of a species that had fought its way from the dirt of one world into the vastness of the stars. Their faces were still, their eyes steady, their silence unbroken. Every gaze in the chamber fell upon them, waiting for a response. But they gave none. The silence was unnerving, so sharp it cut through the noise of the hall. An avian senator rose, his feathers bright and sharp, his voice mocking as he jeered, "Look at them. Not even the courage to speak. These humans think themselves warriors, but they are nothing without their toys of war." Laughter erupted around him, the sound echoing off the crystal walls. A reptilian general slammed his tail against the floor, his scales flashing. "They are reckless," he hissed. "They bring chaos wherever they go. Disarm them, and they will finally know their place." The chamber filled with voices, insults, and arrogance, each speaker eager to prove their superiority. Yet through it all, the humans sat still, their silence louder than any protest could have been. The speaker raised his hands for order, his booming voice quieting the hall. Humanity has been warned. Humanity has been judged. This council offers them one final chance to accept peace and stability. They must surrender their fleets, their weapons, their power. If they refuse, they will no longer have a seat among us. His words struck like thunder, and for a moment the chamber held its breath. Everyone waited for the humans to rise, to shout, to argue. But they did not. They remained seated, still and cold, their silence a shield. Their eyes scanned the room, calm but piercing, as if measuring every insult, every sneer, every arrogant word. Whispers broke out among the delegates. Some shifted nervously in their seats, uneasy with the humans' lack of response. "Why don't they speak?" one insectoid whispered, her mandibles clicking. "Why don't they defend themselves?" Another voice answered, trembling, "Because they don't need to." But the louder voices drowned out the whispers. "They will break," one senator shouted. "They have no choice." "Without us, they are nothing," another agreed, her voice high and sharp. The arrogance swelled once again, and the chamber shook with noise. The humans remained silent. The leader of their delegation, a man with dark eyes and a calm face, finally leaned back in his chair. His hands rested on the table, steady as stone. He did not speak. He did not flinch. He only looked at the speaker, and the silence stretched longer and heavier. Seconds felt like minutes, and every heartbeat in the chamber grew louder. The tension pressed against the walls, against the lungs of every alien present. Their laughter began to falter, their jeers losing strength, until only the sound of breathing and the faint hum of the chamber remained. It was then that the speaker delivered the final words. His silver body shone brighter, his voice filled with triumph. "Humanity refuses to speak, because they know they are beaten. This council decides now. Humanity shall surrender its weapons. Humanity shall bend before us. Humanity shall submit." He raised his arms high, and the chamber erupted in cheers and applause, the sound deafening. Banners waved, claws pounded, voices roared with victory. They celebrated not peace, but the humiliation of a species they had never understood. They believed they had broken humanity. But in that corner, the humans sat still. Their faces betrayed no anger, no fear, no desperation. Only silence. The cold weight of their silence pressed into the chamber like a storm about to break. Some delegates tried to ignore it, forcing their laughter louder, but deep in their hearts they felt something strange. It was not the silence of defeat. It was not the silence of shame. It was something else, something darker, something more dangerous. The silence of patience. The silence of a predator waiting. And so the first session ended, not with diplomacy, not with peace, but with arrogance on one side and silence on the other. The chamber emptied slowly, the air buzzing with laughter and pride, but unease lingered like smoke. Delegates whispered as they left, glancing back at the human delegation with unease. The humans rose at last, their movements calm and precise, their boots striking the floor with heavy echoes. They walked toward the exit without a word, their silence following them like a shadow. The aliens watched, some mocking, others frightened, none able to shake the same thought. The humans had not accepted anything. They had not bowed. They had not broken. They had only waited. And whatever they were waiting for, the galaxy would soon discover. The chamber of the Galactic Council filled again the next day, brighter and louder than before. The vote had been prepared, the words had been written, and the leaders of the galaxy came with pride burning in their hearts. This was the day humanity would face its final ultimatum. No more debates, no more warnings. Either they would bow, or they would be cast out forever. The crystal walls glowed with the colors of distant suns, banners of empires hung tall, and the voices of the alien delegates rose like a storm. Yet despite the noise, there was tension beneath it, a nervous edge that had not been there in years. Everyone remembered the humans' silence from the day before, the way they had sat still while insults and demands rained down upon them. Their silence had been unsettling, almost defiant, and though most covered it with laughter, the unease had not gone away. The speaker of the council rose once more, his silver body gleaming as his voice rolled across the chamber. This council has given humanity every chance, he declared. We asked for unity, and they brought division. We asked for peace, and they brought war. We asked for obedience, and they brought defiance. Today, the decision is final. Humanity will bend, humanity will disarm, or humanity will be removed from this chamber forever. His words were met with loud cheers. Delegates stomped their feet, beat their claws against the floor, raised their voices in triumph. They wanted to see humanity humbled, wanted to see the proud warriors broken by decree. An avian lord rose, his wings flaring wide as his feathers shimmered with arrogance. They think themselves strong because they hold weapons, he mocked. Take their weapons, and they are nothing more than fragile children crying in the dark. Laughter erupted, sharp and cruel. Another delegate, a massive insectoid queen, clicked her mandibles, her voice high and shrill. They fight too often, they bleed too often, and they survive only through chaos. They are not fit for diplomacy, they are not fit for peace. If they refuse this ultimatum, they deserve what follows. Applause followed her words, echoing through the hall like thunder. The human delegation sat still. Their faces were calm, their eyes cold, their silence cutting through the noise. They neither defended themselves nor argued against the accusations. They did not shout or cry or beg. They only sat, as if carved from stone, letting the storm of voices crash around them. This stillness unsettled some of the delegates. A reptilian warlord leaned toward his neighbor, his scales twitching nervously. "Why don't they answer?" he whispered. Even cornered prey snarls. His neighbor shrugged, but his own eyes betrayed unease. The laughter felt thinner now, weaker, as though even those who mocked the loudest were trying to cover their fear. The speaker raised his hand for silence, and slowly the chamber quieted. His voice grew deeper, heavier, as he delivered the words that had been prepared long before. "This is your last chance," he said, turning his gaze toward the humans. "If you surrender your fleets and your weapons, you will be allowed to remain. If you refuse, you will be cast out. Your seat will be taken, your voice erased, and your world's left without allies. The choice is yours. Bend, or be broken. Every eye in the chamber turned to the humans. The silence stretched long, pressing against every heart. Delegates shifted in their seats, waiting for an answer, their anticipation mixed with arrogance and fear. The humans did not move. Their leader, a man with sharp eyes and a calm face, leaned forward slightly, his hands resting against the table. He looked at the speaker, then at the sea of alien leaders surrounding him. But he said nothing. The silence grew unbearable. Some aliens muttered angrily, their pride burning at the lack of response. "Do they think this is a game?" hissed one. "They mock us even now." Another shouted across the chamber, "Speak, humans. Accept your fate." But no answer came. The humans simply sat, their stillness becoming heavier with every passing second. The silence was louder than any shout, sharper than any insult. It was not the silence of fear. It was not the silence of defeat. It was something else, something that made even the proudest delegates shift uneasily in their seats. Finally, the speaker raised his voice, declaring the words that would seal the moment in history. Humanity has refused to answer. Humanity has refused to obey. Then let it be known. Their seat is void, their voice erased. Humanity is no longer welcome in this chamber. His words thundered across the hall, and the crystal walls seemed to vibrate with the force of it. Cheers erupted again, banners were waved, voices shouted in triumph. Many rose to their feet, celebrating what they believed was a great victory. They thought they had humbled the humans, thought they had crushed their spirit with a single decree. But through the celebration, the human delegation finally moved. Slowly, calmly, they rose from their seats. Their chairs scraped against the floor, the sound echoing across the chamber louder than the cheers. They stood in perfect unity, their faces unreadable, their eyes sharp and cold. For a long moment, they simply stood, letting the noise crash around them. Then, without a single word, they turned their backs on the council and began to walk toward the great doors. Their boots struck the polished floor with steady rhythm, each step echoing through the chamber like rolling thunder. The sound cut through the laughter, cutting it short, leaving behind only uneasy silence. No one spoke. No one dared to move. Every eye followed the humans as they walked away, their silence heavier than any threat. The crystal doors opened slowly, spilling light into the chamber. For a brief second, the human delegation stood outlined in the glow, their silhouettes dark and powerful. Then they stepped through, and the doors closed behind them with a crash that echoed like the end of an age. The chamber sat frozen. The triumph of moments before now tasted hollow. The cheering had died, replaced by something no one wanted to admit: fear. The humans had not begged, had not broken, had not bowed. They had simply walked away, refusing the ultimatum with silence. And in that silence, the galaxy felt something shift. The delegates glanced at one another, their arrogance faltering, their laughter gone. For the first time, they wondered if the council had not won a victory, but had made the gravest mistake of all. The chamber of the Galactic Council still shook from the echoes of the humans' departure. For long minutes after the great crystal doors had closed, no one spoke. The sound of their boots striking the polished floor lingered in every ear, a slow, steady rhythm that had cut through laughter and pride alike. Delegates shifted in their seats, their claws, tendrils, and wings restless. Some wanted to shout again, to declare victory, but the words stuck in their throats. Others glanced nervously toward the now empty seats at the far end of the chamber, as though expecting the humans to return at any moment. The silence they had left behind weighed heavier than the loudest speech. At last, a feathered lord broke the quiet, his crest flaring as he forced a laugh. "Let them go," he said, his voice higher than usual. "They have no place here. The vote has spoken. They are finished." A few others echoed his laughter, clapping their hands or claws against the table, but the sound felt forced, hollow, brittle. It did not carry the same arrogance as before. The image of humans rising in unison, calm and silent, was burned into their minds. In the side galleries, smaller delegates whispered among themselves. An insectoid envoy clicked his mandibles nervously. They did not speak. They did not argue. They simply walked away. No species has ever done that. His companion, a scaled merchant prince, flicked his tail uneasily. It was not the silence of weakness. It was the silence of strength. I have seen warriors who remain quiet before battle, not because they fear, but because they know what is coming. Their hushed words spread quickly, feeding the unease already rooted in the hall. The Speaker of the Council tried to reclaim control, his silver body glowing brighter as he rose. "This chamber has made its decision," he thundered. "Humanity is no longer part of our order. Let no one here forget it. Their silence means nothing. Their absence means nothing. They are finished." His words rolled across the hall like waves, but they felt thinner now, weaker, as though even he no longer fully believed them. The elder counselor sat quietly, his frail hands resting on the crystal table. His voice, when it came, was soft but carried further than the shouts. "You do not see it," he said. "Their silence was not surrender. Their silence was a choice. They left because they no longer need you." His words drew stares, glares, and mutters of denial, but none could erase the unease they felt. Outside the chamber, the humans walked through the grand halls without breaking stride. Guards lining the corridors shifted uneasily, their weapons tight in their hands, but none dared to stop them. The humans' footsteps echoed against the shining walls, steady and unshaken, and those who watched could not forget the look in their eyes. Cold, calm, certain. When the human envoys reached the Star Docks, they boarded their ships without a single word, the doors closing behind them with finality. Engines roared to life, and the vessels departed in perfect formation, slipping into the void as one. Those who saw them leave would later whisper that the silence of their departure was more terrifying than the mightiest fleet. Back in the chamber, the silence returned. Delegates spoke in bursts, trying to drown the memory. "They have doomed themselves," one insectoid hissed. "Without us, they are nothing." "They will beg to return," another shouted, his voice trembling. "They cannot survive alone." But even as they spoke, doubt filled their eyes. For centuries, every species had feared expulsion from the Council, knowing it meant isolation and ruin. Yet the humans had not begged, had not fought, had not pleaded. They had chosen to leave. And that choice unsettled the entire galaxy. News of the walkout spread within hours. Across core worlds and frontier colonies, broadcasts replayed the moment the humans rose, turned their backs, and walked out in silence. Citizens watched with wide eyes, their hearts caught between awe and fear. Commentators tried to spin the story, calling it arrogance, calling it weakness, but the images spoke louder than any words. The humans had refused the ultimatum without saying a single thing. They had rejected the Council's authority with silence, and that silence became the story. On some worlds, the reaction was panic. Traders refused to send ships toward human space. Armies tightened their patrols, fearful of what the silence meant. On others, whispers of admiration began to spread. Smaller species, long scorned by the great empires, saw in humanity a defiance they secretly wished they could show. They did not bow, some whispered. They walked away. For the first time in generations, the authority of the Council itself was being questioned. In the private chambers of the Senate, the leaders argued late into the night. Some demanded fleets be sent immediately to enforce the decree, to crush humanity before their silence turned into something worse. Others argued that patience was safer, that humanity would wither without the Council's support. But beneath every argument lay the same fear. The humans had not acted broken. They had acted certain. And certainty was dangerous. The elder counselor's words haunted them all. Their silence was a choice. If he was right, then humanity had not been defeated at all. They had simply chosen another path, one beyond the Council's reach. And if that was true, then the galaxy was already changing, even if no one wanted to admit it. So the chamber ended the day in silence. The proud voices that once roared with arrogance now spoke softer, weaker, weighed down by doubt. The empty human seat at the far end of the hall glowed faintly in the crystal light, a reminder of what had been lost. Delegates tried to look away, but their eyes always drifted back, drawn by the shadow of absence. The humans were gone, but their silence still filled the chamber. And in that silence, the galaxy felt something new stirring. A storm that had only just begun to form rumors began like sparks on dry grass. Small, faint, and easy to dismiss. But soon they spread across the galaxy with a fire that no decree of the Council could extinguish. It started with traders. Those who traveled the lanes near human space, carrying supplies and stories in equal measure. At first, they complained that human checkpoints no longer responded to their signals. Beacons that once welcomed ships with flashing light codes had gone dark. Patrol craft that used to scan convoys now shadowed them in silence, their black hulls sliding past like predators in the deep. The traders spoke of an unsettling change in human space. It was as if the stars themselves had grown colder there, as if the void had become heavier. The Council tried to wave these reports aside. Officials claimed it was nothing more than a show of pride from a humiliated species. They told the galaxy that humanity would soon crumble without the unity of the Council, that silence was proof of weakness, not strength. But as more reports poured in, denial became harder to maintain. A mining outpost on the fringe of human space suddenly went dark, its last transmission a half-finished warning cut off by static. Scout ships sent to investigate never returned. Entire colonies that had once been open to trade now barred their ports, refusing access to outsiders. Whispers grew into stories, and the stories grew into fear. One convoy claimed to have seen enormous shadows moving against the stars, shapes so vast that their scanners refused to record them properly. Another spoke of strange bursts of energy in the void, waves that rattled ships as if nearby suns had flared. Captains who returned swore that the humans were building something vast and terrifying, hidden in the silence of their closed systems. When they told their tales in markets and ports, their voices shook with dread, and those who listened leaned closer, their eyes wide with disbelief and fascination. Inside the chamber of the Council, the debates grew more frantic. The insectoid queen who had mocked humanity the loudest now demanded fleets be sent to occupy their borders. "They are preparing for war," she shrieked, her mandibles clacking in fear. "We must strike before it is too late." Others shook their heads, their voices low. "You do not understand," said a reptilian general, his scarred face grim. "If they are silent, it is because they are working. If they are working, it is for something far greater than we can imagine. We should not provoke them." His words sent murmurs through the chamber, but the arrogant ones still refused to listen. "They are nothing without us," one lord spat. "Let them rattle their cages. They will wither in the dark." Yet his voice trembled as he spoke, betraying fear he could not hide. The elder counselor, who had spoken warnings since the first day, rose again, his frail body shaking but his voice clear. "You blind yourselves," he said, and the chamber grew quiet despite itself. "You think they are weak because they do not answer your insults. You think they are broken because they do not shout. But humanity has never been loud in its preparation. They build in silence. They sharpen their blades in the dark. And when they choose to reveal what they have made, you will understand the price of your arrogance." His words echoed against the crystal walls, and though many dismissed him aloud, none could erase the chill they felt. Beyond the Council's halls, panic began to take hold. On frontier worlds near human borders, entire families abandoned their homes, loading what they could onto ships and fleeing deeper into Council space. Pirates who once preyed on human trade routes vanished, their ships never seen again. Smugglers whispered of human patrols that no longer acted like mere border guards but like sentinels guarding secrets. They described fleets moving in tight, disciplined formations, far more precise than before, their ships silent but menacing. "They are not watching us," one smuggler muttered. "They are guarding something behind them, something they don't want us to see." Even the galaxy's great powers began to feel unease. Some considered sending envoys to Earth with apologies, desperate to calm whatever storm was building. Others argued for blockades, insisting the humans must be cut off before they grew too strong. But every attempt to act fell apart in argument, fear, and division. The Council's unity was cracking, just as the humans had known it would. The rumors kept growing. In spaceports and taverns, the phrase "the humans are preparing" became a quiet mantra. No one knew what it meant, no one could prove it, but everyone believed it. Farmers whispered it as they harvested their crops. Soldiers muttered it in their barracks. Traders carried it across the stars. Each retelling twisted the story larger, darker, more terrifying. Some claimed the humans were building fleets bigger than the Council's armadas. Others said they were constructing weapons so powerful they could break planets. Still others swore that the humans had already claimed entire systems in silence, wiping them clean without firing a shot. The truth was unknown, but the fear was real. And fear spread faster than fact. By the time the fourth week passed after humanity's walkout, the galaxy no longer mocked their silence. Instead, it leaned into it, listening, dreading, waiting. The humans had not spoken, had not threatened, had not acted. But their absence, their closed borders, and their quiet movements spoke louder than any words could. In the chamber of the council, the proud banners still hung, the delegates still shouted, but the weight of silence pressed heavier every day. Every empty message from a vanished colony, every lost scout ship, every whispered rumor became another crack in the council's power. And when the delegates glanced at the empty human seat, they no longer saw weakness. They saw a shadow, deep and endless, a shadow that promised the council had unleashed something it could never control. The galaxy felt it in its bones. The humans were preparing. For what? No one knew. But the silence told them it would be nothing less than unimaginable. The first signs came quietly, but they carried the weight of thunder. At first, the council tried to ignore them, dismissing every rumor as fearmongering, every lost signal as a simple malfunction. But the galaxy knew better. One by one, reports arrived from the border systems near human space, and each carried the same message: something was moving in the dark. It began with a convoy of merchants. 50 ships strong, escorted by council patrol craft, they entered a sector that had once been a common route for trade. The journey began as routine, but halfway through the sector, their sensors began to fail. Stars flickered unnaturally on their screens, comms grew fuzzy, and the escort commanders felt their nerves tighten. Then, one of the escorts picked up a massive shadow on the edge of its scanners. At first, they thought it was a drifting asteroid, but when it shifted course with deliberate precision, their blood ran cold. The shadow blocked out entire constellations, a shape so vast that the convoy's ships seemed like insects before it. Engines glowed faintly in the dark, pulsing steady and slow, like the heartbeat of something alive. The escorts ordered a retreat, and the convoy scattered, but the great shape did not follow. It did not fire. It simply drifted, silent and overwhelming, letting itself be seen. When the survivors returned, their stories shook the markets and taverns of 1,000 worlds. They spoke of a human vessel larger than any ever seen, a ship that made the proudest warships of the council look like toys. Its hull was black, sharp, and seamless, a structure so immense it swallowed starlight and bent shadows around itself. It could blot out the stars, one trembling captain whispered. And the worst part? It didn't even notice us. We were nothing to it. The council dismissed these tales as exaggerations, but then came the sensor logs. Scrambled though they were, the data showed an energy signature so vast the machines barely captured it. It was not an asteroid, not a station, not any natural phenomenon. It was a vessel. Something built. Something powerful. And it bore all the marks of human engineering. The news spread like wildfire. Soon, other reports poured in. Scout ships dispatched to the edge of human space vanished without a trace. Mining colonies that once sent steady shipments went silent. Independent traders swore they saw fleets moving together, dozens of enormous ships gliding through the void in eerie precision. They did not broadcast signals, they did not answer hails. They only moved, calm and deliberate. The silence of their movement was worse than an attack, for it was the silence of confidence. In the Senate chamber, the arguments turned to chaos. Delegates shouted over one another, some demanding immediate war, others insisting that diplomacy be reopened. "We must strike now," an insectoid warlord shrieked, her claws slamming against the crystal table. If we wait, they will become unstoppable. A scaled general shook his head, his deep voice rumbling. They already are. I have seen humans fight. They do not wait idly. If they build ships in silence, then they are building them for a purpose none of us are ready to face. The elder counselor rose again, his frail voice carrying through the noise. You tried to break them with words, he said. But you only gave them reason to rise higher. You thought you had cornered them, but they have turned the corner into a fortress. You think the stories are exaggerations, but they are not. They are warnings. His words left the chamber uneasy, though many still mocked him to cover their fear. Yet when they returned to their quarters, the image of black giants drifting in the void haunted their thoughts. The fear was not limited to the chamber. Across the galaxy, civilians panicked. Worlds closest to human borders saw riots in the streets, citizens demanding evacuation before the black fleets arrived. Traders refused to carry goods through human space, bankrupting entire guilds. Soldiers muttered in their barracks that they would rather desert than face the ships whispered about in every tavern. Even pirates abandoned the lanes, unwilling to risk vanishing in the shadow of ships they knew they could not outrun. And then came the final sign that silenced all doubt. A convoy of science vessels, operating on the far edge of human territory, recorded a fleeting image, dozens of colossal ships rising from the orbit of a barren moon, their hulls glowing faintly as if they had been forged in the heart of stars. The recording lasted only seconds before the vessels cut comms and disappeared, but it was enough. The image spread through the networks faster than the council could suppress it. Billions saw it, billions whispered the same words. The humans have built something beyond imagination. The council's authority cracked that day. No speech could erase the fear, no decree could restore confidence. Every leader in the chamber knew the truth in their hearts, even if they did not speak it aloud. Humanity had not surrendered. Humanity had not obeyed. Instead, they had built weapons greater than anything the galaxy had ever seen, and they had revealed them not in war but in silence. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy realized the Council was no longer the strongest voice among the stars. The balance of power had shifted, and it had shifted to Earth. The first signs had been given, and the galaxy trembled in their shadow. The stars trembled, and not from war. They trembled because of what drifted silently across their light, blocking their brilliance with shapes so massive that entire constellations seemed to vanish behind them. By now, the galaxy had already heard the rumors. Merchants had spoken of shadows bigger than moons. Soldiers had whispered about fleets moving in silence. But when the human armadas finally revealed themselves openly, the galaxy understood that the whispers had not been exaggerations, they had been warnings. It began on the edge of Council space. A cluster of frontier systems, lightly guarded and considered too unimportant for war, became the stage for the first true appearance of humanity's new power. Council fleets patrolled as usual, their captains bored and confident, when the scanners lit up with impossible readings. At first, they thought it was a glitch, hundreds of signals appearing at once, each one larger than anything the instruments had been built to measure. Then, out of the black, the shadows emerged. Human ships poured into the system, not in chaos, but in perfect formation. Their black hulls glistened faintly under the light of the stars, each vessel vast and unyielding, their engines glowing with slow, steady power. They did not rush forward or break ranks. They drifted as one, their silence heavier than any battle cry. The Council fleet froze, their commanders giving frantic orders, but no one dared fire. The humans did not aim weapons. They did not transmit demands. They simply filled the void with their presence, and that presence was enough. One officer, later found trembling in his quarters, described the sight in broken words. It was not a fleet, it was a wall of iron and shadow. They could have destroyed us in seconds, but they didn't. They only wanted us to see, to know. His report spread quickly, feeding the fire of fear. The galaxy now had confirmation. Humanity had built an armada beyond imagination, and they were no longer hiding it. Within days, similar sightings came from across the stars. A convoy in another sector reported being flanked by a dozen human dreadnoughts, their massive silhouettes drifting silently until the convoy turned back in panic. A research station on the rim of Council territory recorded ships eclipsing its entire sky, their sensors overwhelmed by the energy signatures. Even colonies far from human borders swore they saw strange lights in the night, fleets moving between stars with unnatural speed. The effect was immediate. Trade collapsed in entire regions as merchants refused to travel anywhere near human space. Armies stationed on the frontier deserted in droves, their soldiers whispering that to fight such fleets was to invite death. On some worlds, citizens rioted, demanding their governments cut ties with the Council and pledge loyalty to Earth instead. It was not conquest, not invasion. Humanity had not fired a single shot. But the galaxy bent under their silence, because silence with such power was more terrifying than war. In the Council chamber, panic consumed the delegates. The proud speeches of weeks past were gone. Now, voices shook with fear as they argued. "We must unite and strike before it is too late," shouted one general, his scales gleaming with sweat. "Every moment we delay, their strength grows greater." But another delegate snapped back. "Strike? Strike with what? Our fleets cannot even approach them without breaking apart. You saw the reports. Our soldiers refuse to fight. Even our admirals hesitate. How can we strike against something that already owns the stars?" The chamber erupted in shouting, accusations, and fear. The elder counselor once again rose, his frail frame shaking, but his eyes steady. His voice was soft, but it silenced the chaos. "You still do not understand," he said. "You thought your votes carried power. You thought your laws could bind them. But humanity has shown you the truth. They do not need your diplomacy. They do not need your approval. They have built in silence what no empire could imagine. And now, the stars themselves tremble in their shadow." His words left the chamber quiet, because no one could deny what they had seen. Meanwhile, the human fleets continued their silent march. They did not conquer planets, did not destroy stations, did not boast of their strength. They only moved, calm and deliberate, showing themselves at the edges of systems before vanishing into hyperspace again. Every appearance shattered confidence further. Every sighting broke another chain of the Council's authority. It became clear to everyone. The humans were not only stronger, they were in control. They chose not to fight, and that choice was what terrified the galaxy most. In the taverns of frontier worlds, smugglers whispered that the humans had fleets hidden in every sector, ready to appear at any moment. In the marketplaces of core planets, merchants sold trinkets carved in the shape of human dreadnoughts, their buyers treating them with reverence more than fear. And in the barracks of Council armies, soldiers quietly admitted to one another that if war came, they would rather surrender than face the black giants drifting through the stars. The Council had tried to strip humanity of weapons, to humble them, to force them into submission. Instead, they had given them reason to rise higher, to prepare in silence, and to reveal their strength not through war but through presence. The fleets that now moved across the galaxy were not just ships. They were symbols. Symbols of defiance, of will, of a species that had chosen to walk away and in doing so had become greater than any decree could contain. The stars trembled because the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity had not withdrawn in weakness. Humanity had withdrawn to prepare. And now, their silence was the loudest roar the universe had ever heard. The moment came without warning. Across 1,000 worlds, in the depths of the void, on trading stations and warships alike, every screen, every holographic relay, every comm beacon flickered at once. Static filled the air for only a breath before it cleared, and a single figure appeared. A human stood in the center of the transmission, dressed in a simple black uniform with the crest of Earth on his chest. His face was calm, his eyes steady, and when he spoke, his voice rolled across the galaxy with a weight heavier than war. "We gave you peace," the envoy said. His tone was not angry, not bitter, but certain, and that certainty made the words even sharper. "We asked to stand among you as equals. We asked for respect. You gave us mockery. You laughed at our presence. You called us reckless, violent, unworthy. You voted to strip us of our weapons. You thought that by silencing us, you could control us. His voice grew colder. You were wrong. Behind him, the image shifted. Stars filled the background, but they were soon swallowed by shadows. Colossal shapes drifted into view, human warships, hundreds of them, so large they dwarfed entire stations. Their black hulls gleamed faintly, their engines pulsed with slow, steady light. They filled the void like giants, their formations precise, their silence suffocating. The envoy's voice continued, calm as stone. You believed your decrees had power. You believed your votes carried weight. But power is not found in words spoken in chambers. Power is found in will. And our will was never broken. On every world, crowds froze, eyes wide, mouths open. In markets and taverns, in barracks and palaces, no one moved as the broadcast played. Even in the council chamber, the proud delegates sat silent, staring at the projection that filled their crystal walls. Some tried to look away, but they could not. They had laughed at humanity once. Now they trembled before their silence, before the truth revealed in the black armadas. The envoy lifted his head slightly, his gaze piercing through the broadcast. While you mocked, we prepared. While you scorned, we built. While you celebrated your false victory, we worked in silence. And now, the galaxy will see what you tried to erase. We will not bow. We will not surrender. We do not kneel to decrees spoken in arrogance. We choose our own path. And we have chosen to show you what it means to underestimate humanity. The fleets behind him shifted, entire formations turning in perfect unison. The stars themselves seemed to vanish as the sheer scale of them filled the sky. Some ships were so large they looked like drifting moons. Others bristled with towers and spires, glowing faintly with the power of weapons the council could not comprehend. They did not fire, but they did not need to. Their existence was enough. Panic erupted across the galaxy. On frontier worlds, civilians screamed and fell to their knees. On military stations, soldiers froze at their posts, their hands trembling on their controls. Admirals shouted orders, but no one obeyed. On council core worlds, riots began instantly. Citizens filled the streets, demanding their leaders break ties with the Senate and pledge loyalty to Earth instead. Armies fractured as soldiers whispered among themselves. If war came, they would rather stand with humanity than against it. The envoy's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. You sit in chambers and call yourselves rulers of the galaxy. But the truth is clear now. Your authority is nothing. Your decrees are dust. You tried to strip us of strength, but strength was never yours to take. We are humanity. We endured what you feared. We built what you could not imagine. And now, you will remember this day not as the day you disarmed us, but as the day you saw what we had become. In the council chamber, the delegates sat in frozen silence. The speaker himself, once so proud and booming, could not find words. His silver body dimmed as his hands shook. The elder counselor closed his eyes, his voice a whisper that still carried through the hall. The stars themselves tremble, he said. And it is not because they attacked. It is because they chose not to. That is power greater than any of us ever held. The broadcast began to fade, the image of the envoy shimmering as the fleets drifted back into shadow. But before it ended, the human spoke one final line, his voice calm, steady, and unforgettable. Remember this silence, for it is the sound of your authority ending. And then the transmission vanished, leaving only darkness on every screen. The galaxy sat still. No one spoke. No one moved. In markets, in barracks, in palaces, in the crystal chamber itself, there was only silence. It was the silence of realization, the silence of fear, the silence of a galaxy that understood it had already lost. Humanity had not conquered with war. They had conquered with silence, preparation, and will. The human declaration spread faster than light, not because of the machines that carried it, but because of the terror it planted in every heart. From that moment on, the galaxy no longer looked to the council for order. It looked to Earth, to the fleets in the dark, to the silence that had broken only to reveal power beyond imagination. And though no battles had been fought, the galaxy knew, a new age had begun. The day after the human broadcast, the crystal chamber of the Galactic Council was not the same. The walls still shimmered, the banners still hung, but the air was no longer filled with arrogance. It was heavy, thick, suffocating. The delegates filed into their seats slowly, their eyes darting toward the empty human section at the far end of the hall. Once mocked as weakness, that empty seat had become a throne. It was no longer absence, it was dominance. The silence that clung to it was louder than the voices of 1,000 empires. The speaker of the council rose, his silver form gleaming under the chamber lights, but the strength in his voice was gone. He tried to speak, to restore order, to remind the galaxy of the council's authority. "We remain the heart of the stars," he declared, his voice trembling. "We must stand united, or humanity will divide us." His words echoed, but no one believed them. The delegates looked at him with hollow eyes, their faces pale and their voices still. They had all seen the broadcast. They had all seen the fleets, ships so vast they blotted out constellations, moving with the precision of a predator that did not need to roar. The debates began, but they were no longer debates, they were arguments of desperation. Some leaders shouted that they must beg for forgiveness, that envoys should be sent to Earth with apologies before it was too late. Others screamed for war, their voices shrill with panic, insisting the council must fight or be enslaved. But no one moved to act. Even those who spoke of war could not hide the tremor in their words. They knew the truth. Their armies would shatter the moment they faced the Black Armadas. Their soldiers would refuse to fight. Their fleets would crumble before even the first engagement. Humanity had already won, without firing a single shot. Outside the chamber, the galaxy was falling apart. Trade guilds collapsed as merchants refused to move goods through council space, fearing human fleets would appear without warning. On frontier worlds, riots broke out as citizens demanded their leaders break from the council and ally with Earth. On entire planets, banners of the council were torn down, replaced with makeshift emblems of humanity, symbols of a power the people now trusted more than their own rulers. Armies fractured, with deserters vanishing in droves, some swearing they would rather serve under human command than die under council orders. It was not invasion. It was not conquest. It was surrender without a word. The elder counselor, frail but steady, rose again in the chamber. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the silence like thunder. "You still do not understand," he said. "You think humanity seeks to rule you. But they do not need to rule. Their silence rules already. Their presence rules already. There will rules already. You tried to strip them of power, but in doing so, you stripped yourselves. The council is no longer feared. Humanity is." His words left the delegates trembling. Some looked away, ashamed. Others glared, too proud to admit the truth. But all of them felt the same fear in their bones. Messages flooded the council chambers from across the galaxy. Pleas from colonies begging for protection, not from humans, but from the chaos erupting now that the council's authority was broken. Demands from smaller empires declaring they would no longer follow council laws, instead choosing neutrality under Earth's shadow. Even allies of the most powerful empires sent quiet envoys to humanity, seeking favor, seeking safety, seeking survival. Every message carried the same unspoken truth. The council's voice no longer mattered. The speaker tried once more to shout above the despair. "We are still the center," he cried, his voice shaking. "We are still the law of the galaxy." But his words were met with silence. No applause, no cheers, no voices of support. Only silence. The same silence the humans had left them with when they turned their backs. The same silence that had haunted the chamber ever since. It pressed down upon them now, crushing, undeniable. Delegates glanced toward the human seat again, its empty surface glowing faintly in the crystal light. It drew their eyes like gravity, like a wound that could not heal. They saw in it not weakness, not defeat, but judgment. They saw a reminder that humanity had walked away, not because they had been beaten, but because they no longer needed the council. That empty seat had become a mirror, reflecting the council's failure, its impotence, its collapse. And so the session ended, not with triumph, not with decree, but with silence. The delegates filed out in shame and fear, their voices hushed, their banners drooping, their heads bowed. Outside, the galaxy shifted further into chaos. Worlds tore themselves free from the Council, citizens looked to Earth instead of their rulers, and armies collapsed under the weight of their own despair. The once proud Galactic Council, the self-proclaimed heart of the stars, now ruled nothing but a crumbling chamber. History would not remember the Council's vote, nor its arrogance, nor its threats. History would remember the silence of humanity, the fleets that blotted out the stars, and the calm voice that declared their independence. From that day forward, the galaxy spoke of one truth. The day humanity refused diplomacy was the day the Council was left in ruins. And every time a shadow passed across the stars, every time a fleet was glimpsed in the void, every being remembered the silence that ended an empire and began a new age.